you believe the timeline to be?
And then please introduce yourself once again.
Phillips, Lewiston. Kathy, if you remember, we were tasked by the council to update the master plan because it does reflect 2015. Our commission has been operating 1 to 2 members short for quite some time. We were meeting every other month. Once that task was presented to us, we've been meeting monthly, and we've been doing work in between as well. And our work is not creating a new plan, it's updating the current cemetery master plan with the current data. Not all of us on the commission are passionate about the cemetery, but we're not professional plan writers. You paid a lot of money for that master plan from an expert. And so what we're trying to do is compare the 2015 information with current operations of other cemeteries within the state of Idaho and bring your information up to date. And that's what we plan to bring to you. One of your comments was that you have 300,000 people
employees
to take care of. And that's one of my fears is the revenue that's generated from a potential sale. You can sit there and say that it's dedicated to the cemetery. And other elections will take place, these chairs will change, and the mindset can change. And then where are we if that money needs to be used someplace else? The members of the commission are also citizens of the city of Lewiston. We want our roads good. We want our employees well paid. But at the same time, you gave us a master plan to work with. We've come to you, not necessarily you, but we've come to this council every single year practically, asking for little bites of money that would have put the master plan forward. And now you say to us that we haven't done anything. And that's insulting. I mean, we care about this plan and we want to do whatever you need to help us take it to fruition. Does that answer your question, or is that my soapbox?
It does.
Councillor Lidke.
I don't mean to be offensive because I know the process does not just mean that your recommendation fell short. I believe that you went to councils. I believe that then prioritizations that had no concern of what you presented were made. I'm simply trying to make sure, and I agree with you that things can change and this body will change. But what we can do is follow statute. And when we put a money, especially from a one-time sale, into a fund, they're breaking the law if they move it. And so that's why I feel like this can be done in a way that does preserve that moving forward. I would not do something without making sure that it went to the right place, because I think that's been what's been happening. That's just my speculation and my opinion. But at this point, if you complete your updates, there's still no promise that anybody's gonna fund it. This gives us a chance, and that's why I'm a proponent to sell a portion, not all of it.
There could possibly be what I was referring to in looking for funding options. There could be possibilities of grants or that type of funding as well. I don't know, but I would like the opportunity to look. And I respectfully would hope that you're not looking at the perpetual care fund as a place for permanency for any revenue from the sale, because that locks it up. That doesn't put us forward at all. what that does is it does increase like the interest that we're able to draw off of it annually. But it doesn't give us $1 million lump sum to make the plan happen. Any other questions? Yes.
Before you go, do you have a timeline that you could give us?
What would the council consider a reasonable timeline? I believe it was about 3 months ago that you tasked us.
I was wondering, that was another question. I don't remember when that was, but it was this year, wasn't it? January.
January. That's a long time. But we have been working diligently on it. If I said by the end of the year, would that be reasonable?
And you wanted to go out and collect names in the neighborhood? I mean,
We want,
whether they,
when the plan was presented, once it was approved by the council, or maybe it was just prior to that, we did a neighborhood event at the cemetery on the undeveloped land with visual plans of what the master plan might look like. And there was an outpouring of support. I'm told that there was another survey done, and it was early on, I believe it was around 2011, I'm not sure, that was done by students from the U of I, and that too was in support of expanding and retaining the integrity of the cemetery.
one more question. Have you ever brought to council what you said you have drawn up, that
It's, you all have copies
we
of
have
the
that presentation?
master plan. I did not make the presentation. That was made by the consulting firm that you hired.
Oh, for
to
back at
develop.
15.
Yes,
So I
yes.
thought you recently
No.
had gone out and,
No, not since then.
okay.
Councilor Claiborne?
Well, I was the council liaison back when the master plan was presented by, I think it was Lees and Associates,
Correct.
getting that from Mr. Berger. And yeah, we paid a bunch of money for that. And out of all the recommendations made, getting some irrigation out there, because no point in planting any vegetation whatsoever without having irrigation. There were plans for doing that. It was going to be part of the budget. And every year since, any plans that have been presented for improving the ground out there have not been acted upon for whatever reason. The council, we have no water out to that site. So there's no point in planting trees, really no point in planting sagebrush at this time. So for us to be having this conversation, I'm not in favor of selling this piece of property at all, and I've said this before. Not until we can get to a point where we can at least start at the top of this, which is the only way to really realistically do it affordably for the city would be to phase in the irrigation up there, to the closest part of the cemetery that already exists, and continue to work the way down. And who knows? I mean, maybe a retaining wall gets built down along Southway or 16th and acts as a sound deadener, and all that property can be utilized as graveyard. But there's way too many unknowns here for us to just be chomping at selling a piece of property. Once it's gone, it's gone. Yes.
When you said that now that I'm understanding, when had a consultant,
Correct.
And
They're
that
ones that did the master plan.
and on that master plan, it said that council was to assist or was involved in providing water or
Well, the council would be, because council, the city owns the cemetery. If you're
So-
gonna improve it, the money's gotta come from somewhere.
So those councils never did it, and this council hasn't done it?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you, that's what I wanted to hear.
Counselor Forsman?
I'm not against it, and I'm not really for it at the moment either. I'm really on the fence only because we did give them a task to do. I think it would be good to let them finish out updating, not rewriting, updating their plans. November would be, I think, a better time in my mind, to get that completed. And so at least we have traction on it and we're actively working to get things done. I do see Councilor Leakey's concern is that we've sat on this forever and nothing is being done and we're not making action on it. And so wanting to start actually treating this as a priority and following through and taking bites out of this plan that we're trying to accomplish with this cemetery property. And I do see that the sale could be a potential revenue that we could put towards that project. But I think we still have a lot of unknowns of how that property or that money would be allocated, and is it best to make it so they cannot move it around? There's just still a lot of unknowns. I think it would be good to get more information and before we made a permanent decision that affects those that live in the area.
Counselor Kleber?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I got a question for Mr. Barker.
There he is.
Fully irrigate that upper portion before where the land kind of breaks right there. What do you think we realistically be talking about for a water system? $1 million?
Counselor, thank you for the question. Tim Barker, Parks and Rec Director for the city. When we first proposed it to council, we were looking at about $150,000, and that's probably going to be at least all but $400,000 to $500,000. Would be a wild guess. We'd have to find out what it would take. Positive that's occurred since that time is we do have water that's gone across to that northeast corner of the undeveloped land, so that's about a $40,000 to $50,000 savings there. So we would have to find out an estimate. That phase one that's identified in the master plan included taking water to the site, greening it up, and putting perimeter trees around. So then some grass could grow, the neighborhood could enjoy it as a green space in the meantime before we could get to developing further.
Counselor Leakey?
Director Barker, what kind of staff are you giving to the commission to help them complete this project of the update? Is it you specifically, or what kind of bandwidth are you giving to this project in your department?
Thank you for the question. It's mostly myself, as I'm the staff liaison to the commission, but we've also worked closely with Chad and Corky. Chad is our park technician that manages the office area, the cemetery, and the grounds, and Corky oversees Chad. So I act as the primary contact, and the two of them have been assisting.
So, can you just walk me through what the update's been over the last 6 months? Because with a timeline of like November, I need to know the reality of that to happen. And how comfortable are you with, if you brought the plan to us next month to review the changes, are you comfortable that we would see that there's progress being made and then we could discuss that?
So we could provide an update at that point. We probably wouldn't have the citizen input portion of the plan completed at that point.
But the changes that you guys have seen that needs to be addressed, the comparisons to others, cemeteries throughout the state, that would all be able for us to be reviewed.
So that's all information that we started working on in the spring prior to making our cemetery fee increase proposals for you that go into effect October 1. So the fee portion has already been completed. It's just the general information. And obviously, as we've looked at the master plan, obviously seeing what hasn't occurred over the last 9 years, there will probably be some suggestions in there of things that may not be realistic anymore. Again, the consultant promoted a best use and best scenario. And as we know, there's other opportunities and areas that funding needs to be focused on. Never was our plan from the start to look towards grants or other alternative sources. And so maybe that may take a higher presence within the new updated plan for council to adopt.
So to that point,
Alternative funding sources.
no grants have been sought up until this point, even though prior councils have kicked the can down the road for lack of.
We haven't. No, direction previously that we'd had was to continue to request funding through the council process.
Do you have to have direction to seek grant funding, or can you just bring it and say, we found this, can we have it?
Typically for grants, we do need to run it through council for approval before we would apply for something. A lot of grants do require you to have council approval.
I'd love to give you that approval, because I do think that that's something that the commission is depending on you and your staff to make sure that their goals can be put through. And if they're not doing the presentation, this is the first time that I've heard that grants were even discussed. And so I'll make a motion to give you that okay, because I doubt there's that many out there. But if there is one or two, we need to go after them. Because again, I have to think about the sustainability of this budget first and foremost. Because if we decide that we're not gonna use surplus properties that we may or may not use, or that we can't conform to make, then we have to look at what does this look like as far as the amount of staff and services we offer the people, so that we can have cemeteries and parks and things of that nature. So is that appropriate to make that motion today? Because I will certainly make it. At this point, we've got to have all hands on deck if this is gonna go through.
Is that a legal question?
If I could just follow up really quickly, typically the support from council comes in the form of approving an application that we've,
So you can bring an
Submit.
application to us and we approve. That's what I
we
thought.
would still
And I
need to do
yet
that.
to,
Okay.
I haven't seen that in the past, so. Okay, that's,
But you are correct that there's not a whole lot of resources out there, but that doesn't mean we can't start putting our creative juices together and look and see what opportunities we have.
So you will
Counselor
be,
Schroeder?
thank you, you will be engaging our grant writer to research that and anyone else that might have some information on it?
Since she's in the room, I will say absolutely yes.
Hello.
Or was. I didn't look, I saw her earlier. Dang it, maybe she's
She
listening.
left right as she heard it. Yeah.
She saw you get up, she left.
No, we absolutely would. I mean, we haven't been able to receive, and put focus on any grants that we've been looking at without her input, so she would be definitely involved in that
Thank you so
process.
much. Yeah.
Mayor?
Counselor Forsman?
Would that plan give us an idea of how much it would cost to like irrigate that area, buildings, and what are we looking at to develop? Are we gonna get a estimated cost of what that might look like?
So the master plan's not gonna tell you that information. It's gonna update statistics, trends, what the community's input is. That would be additional work that we would do. We can try to do as much of that in-house, simply figuring out what irrigation would look like based on the draft plan that's in the master plan for that section. We can probably do that as staff fairly easily without having to bring on an engineering firm to do that for us.
Yeah, I find that would be really important to have an idea of what it's gonna cost for that, especially if we're talking about selling a property. How much of that money is actually gonna put a dent in this project that we're gonna have? Because it might be minimal, or it might be a significant chunk that we can take out. And so I think that's a really important data to have.
Yeah, and irrigation and landscaping's, not gonna solve all the world's problems, because we'll still have to plot pathways and roads and get additional infrastructure built in. And then looking at what other types of columbariums, there was mention of kind of a communal gathering area that could also serve for services, or small family gatherings, there's prices to those as well within that original plan. They're gonna be pretty significant.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Lidke?
Just a couple more follow-ups, Director Barker. One thing that I would like to see in this update is the opportunity for you guys to look at an option of selling and presenting that in your update of what you would be okay with. Because I do think that we need to be very realistic in the fact that what you're talking about, again, because I'm not saying that this is the be-all, save-all of, and this cemetery is gonna be done with the sale of this piece of property. But at least it's a step in the right direction to move forward with. And again, your community engagement is important. We need to know, is the mausoleum the first thing that we need to go after? Is the green space something that people want to see? Those are things that obviously we want to pay attention to, but we have to be able to fund it because this plan is already 9 years old. We're updating it. We need to show some progress because plans are just that until they're dusty on the shelf and we have to look back like we've been doing to say, okay, what do we do to move forward? So I would like to see that as part of your update because I think it's a reality that if you can acknowledge that, we can then come to the table and figure out what's best because you will have the input. But also those costs do need to be a part of this. And I would say that I would challenge this council because we keep saying we can't make a decision. So we need to give them the information that we need to have to make a decision. There needs to be that information to them because they're only guessing then if we don't say what we need to hear. I have everything I need. And obviously I sound like I've made a decision. But if you come to me with a $250,000 grant, might buy you some time. But I haven't seen that. So that would be my suggestion.
Director Barker, is it the expectation of the current plan that the Norman Hill Cemetery would become self-sustaining at any time in the future?
With, and it's not detailed specifically within there, but it talks about potential revenues with the full development of that eventual piece. I mean, that would be the eventual business plan is what is that magic number that we're looking in the perpetual care fund? Is it something close to 6 or 7 million where that interest is going to offset and take over what's currently being provided through the general fund? That would be our goal. And I'll say that that's part of the concern I have of selling a portion of that property is now we're taking away that potential revenue that will help us long term. I mean, it'd be like, let's say we sell all 6.3 acres off now. Well, we're essentially immediately going into maintenance mode and zero revenue is going to be coming in because the current developed portion of the property is fully built out at this time.
How much do you contribute to the perpetual care fund on an annual basis today?
I can't tell you off the top of my head, and I doubt Amy could. It's very minimal because we don't have a lot of plots available to sell.
Very minimal. So if it's very minimal today, and what's the principal on it? $1 million or less, I think, 800,000 maybe?
Yeah, I mean, we're talking probably what's that?
That was in my last presentation.
Yeah.
We do the math on
we
that
have to come back.
real easily and find out what you're putting into it on an annual basis. If there's only a principal balance of $800,000 or $1 million in there, and it's going to be beyond 150 or 200 years before you ever come close to having the principal.
We're probably
Not really
earning more
actually,
off the
so-
interest for sure than we are
Yeah.
in what's being contributed through sale of
So I think the commission would be wise to take a look at that and think about how you're going to fund these things, because today the cemetery is cash poor. You don't have money, and it's going to be a long, long time, and many of us in this room may not be here until you have the resources to do that. And so I think I'm obviously in support of taking a look at this proposal and seeing if there's an opportunity there. I'm not saying it has to be this big or that big, but I think there's an opportunity here to look at that. And it does a lot of things. It puts some of these properties back on the tax roll, which is good for property tax relief for the citizens. But if it provides some seed money or a boost to that perpetual care fund, it's going to allow you to get to that point much sooner. And it's the power of compounding interest to get there. But putting a few dollars in every year today, it's not going to do anything. Inflation will eat that up, and you'll never get ahead. And we'll never have that. You'll always be competing with other general fund items on there. That's just the way it's going to be. So I think the cemetery is gonna have to be very creative and find ways to help generate some revenues so that it can be self-sustaining and do some of the good things that you want to do, that you talk about in that plan. But today, there is not a revenue source for that, and probably not in the foreseeable future. And I think that's the reality, and I think that's the challenge that the commission needs to do. I think you need to be brave and take a hard look at that. And it might mean that you have to change your thinking a little bit. But my assessment of the plan that we adopted 10 years ago, we're not even close to achieving what it says to do. And that's the way plans are. You have to go back and validate the assumptions. And if they're no longer valid, then you have to change the assumptions or build a new plan. So I'm all for the cemetery. And I was at that service for our hero that we brought home, Lieutenant Nepper. It's a beautiful cemetery, but I fear that we're probably going to lose that in the long run if we don't have the funding that's necessary to keep it up and maintain it. You take a look at how we're, using our red shirt resources, which allows us, quite honestly, to get by on a pretty low budget. But if that went away, we'd have more problems because now we need more money to maintain this. So it's just, there's a lot of challenges out there. And I too would challenge the commission to just take a hard look at that and think about if there's something that you can do to be creative to say, here's an opportunity to maybe surplus some lands. We could take those proceeds. I would recommend putting half of that into the permanent cemetery fund to help build it up. And then that gives you a chunk of money, an infusion of money to maybe complete a mausoleum, or I'm not in favor of a scattering ground or whatever they call this, scattering garden, but certainly little columbariums and stuff like that, I think would be in high demand in this part of our state, of the city, if we did that. And I don't see us getting there under the current plan. I don't know if the new plan is going to get us there, but.
We'll definitely take a look, and obviously it's a plan that ultimately the council approves for us to be able to move forward and use as a document to help guide our department and then the work of the commission. So we will talk about various alternatives as we're continuing to update sections in that plan.
So council, if I heard you right, would you like Director Barker and the Cemetery Commission to meet back with us again on the November work session? Is that kind of what we said, or?
Councilor Lakey was talking about next month of general update where they've gone so far. Are we not wanting to do that? And then
I was just trying to get a feel for what they've accomplished so far. So if they felt comfortable giving it, it wasn't necessarily my intent to make them call them on the carpet in the next month, but they've had 6 months. I was trying to figure out and gauge where they've gotten to.
well, what's the timeline we can have an updated where so far?
The next time they meet, it'll be the end of this month. There's no scheduled work session right now in September because of a holiday. So we'd be looking at October anyway.
Okay, October is a good timeline. I would be okay with October.
We wouldn't be able to have everything completed. I mean, you can always, we would probably have more if we just went with the November, but up to you to decide.
Would we have completion by November?
We can talk about it this month and try to see what we can do to fast track some items and get that public input involved.
I'm okay going with November if that gives you guys time to wrap it up and you feel like you're able to finish more on that timeline. I don't know about everybody else, but.
Councilor Klein?
So I'm okay with, I'm good with November. I know it takes a long time to figure all this data out. I'd like to see the updates to the master plan, of course, where we're at with that. Any kind of funding we can come up with and how to plan for the updates, like a prioritization of how we want, what projects we want, in order to kind of, and prices for them to see if maybe that, if we were to sell or whatever, that 1.6 million, what could we put that to right away so we can get the ball rolling and see progress.
Councilor Schroeder?
Do we need to take a vote on that or just nod of heads?
Councilor, I think I'll leave that up to you and the council president. If Director Barker feels like he has clear direction, then, I think a head nod would work. If you'd like to make a motion, you're certainly welcome to do that.
You want to vote, or do you want to?
I'm good with head nods.
I'm in favor.
Not in my head.
November, right? That's what we're talking, okay.
Councilor Speckle, are you okay? Not November or not okay? Like November, we'll hear back from Cemetery Commission, Park Commission. Thank you, Director.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
Okay, next up is Roman numeral 5, unfinished new business. Item A, City Councilor comments. Comments shall not be related to an item currently before the City Council or an item that may come before the City Council in the foreseeable future. They shall be limited to comments, not discussion. Are there any City Councilor comments? I think we'll wait till Councilor Forsman sits down before we move on.
Councilor comments?
Yeah.
Okay, I do actually have real quick.
Councilor Forsman.
I overheard in the crowd earlier today whether we get, the counselors get emails. Typically, if you send them to Tanya Brock, she will forward them on to us and usually print them out by the agenda that we read. We just don't read them out loud anymore. Or if you send us to individual counselors, we will be able to get them, so. And my second thing is I'm out of town all this week. I'll be back Monday. I should be able to make the regular council session on the 12th, but I will probably be unreachable for at least a week. And that is all I have.
Thank you, Councilor. Further council comments? No. Item B, city boards and commission liaison updates.
Not at this time.
Councilor Kleber?
No, not at this time.
No,
We've
not
got
this time, okay.
3 meetings next week.
Two.
Thank you. Well, Mayor comments, I'll just say our finance department's been very busy, as well as our public information officer getting ready for the budget year, and we'll kick it off next Monday. Should be an exciting evening, so thank you to Amy and Carol and their staffs for doing a wonderful job getting us there. Agenda topics.
There was something on there, wasn't there? Someone else put on? Oh, I thought there was something about the city attorney thing. Did we already do that?
We have
She'll let me do it.
VA01, whose request was that?
Me, but I thought we cleared that up in an email. Do we need to just assign it a date?
This is cleared up.
Well, I said we could wait, I guess. Do you need a date? Sorry.
Jennifer Zingano, City Attorney. Because this matter was originally a motioned item to be added to the agenda per city code, it does need to have a motion to postpone it to a later date. The proposed later date would be August 26th, since I am out of state on August 12th, and I won't be available for that discussion.
Mayor,
Councilor Lidke?
I would move the discussion of VA-01-2024 from August 12th to August 26th.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilor Lidke, seconded by Councilor Schroeder to move discussion of VA-01-2024 from August 12th to August 26th. Is there discussion? Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Brings us to Roman numeral 6, adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilor Forsman, seconded by Councilor Schroeder to adjourn. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you, Council.
Thank you.